I have not had any experiences with a franchise, and they're intimidating. Like I'd certainly, I kind of knew what I was walking into, and then you get there and the sets are so big and there's so many people, and like our first day of shooting there was like 500 paparazzi. It felt like it was like the Met Gala or something. I wouldn't know, but yeah. But I really was aware of like the bigness of it, and it was very nerve-wracking. So it's different each time, but I really did feel like protected on this in a way that was really incredible.
Hello.
Just a casual look for this.
Well, First of all, I just have to say congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks.
It's very nice to talk to you on this special day. So first, let's just start at the beginning. You've talked about being a big Batman fan.
Yeah.
What did you know about Sophia Falcone prior to getting this script?
I knew, when I signed on, I'd only read the first episode, and I'd had really long talks with Lauren. So I knew sort of like a pretty specific idea of what happens to her, but not until I read it. I knew what happened to her in Arkham, but it wasn't the same as reading it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Really.
And so I understand this was a very collaborative environment, and with showrunner Lauren LaFranc. And I would love to hear about that process. Like, you join the project. How do those conversations start about developing the character, and how did they evolve over the course of shooting?
Well, I think that we would have these like really long talks, and then I would like kind of like go squirrel away, and then I would do a lot of work on it and come back and sort of be like, I have 1,000 questions. Can we get on the phone for 2 hours, and can I just pepper you with questions? And she was very kind and was like, sure. And then I also like brought a lot of, I was very lucky to have such a collaborative working relationship with the hair and makeup and wardrobe department. And so I had never done this, but I like came in with a couple of ideas and was like, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this for when she turns over? And that felt like very much the three of us were in sync. And I'd never been that welcomed in. And I'd also never felt totally, I think because I love Batman so much, I was like, I gotta I want to share some secret ideas that I've had about her, and I didn't know they would be so open to it, which was also incredible.
And when you're playing a character who's a comic book character, part of this huge lore, do you either want to go back and look at the comics, or do you feel like that's, as a performer, maybe not the road you want to go down because you want to take it from the script, et cetera?
I knew early because we had so many talks, and actually just even in my first meeting with Lauren and Matt and Craig Zobel, who directed the first three, who's so brilliant, they told me to stay away. They were like, you can read it if you want, but we're going in a completely different direction with her. And I was like, great, got it. I'd done a very deep Google dive for that first meeting and had a lot of questions. But even in the reading of the script, I was like, oh, this seems different. But so I stayed away. Yeah, but I did really want. She wears giant headgear at some point in the comics, and I was like, and the headgear, will I be able to have that? And they were like, no. And so I was like, got it.
Dang it.
Dang it. Yeah.
Well, going back to the collaboration, obviously every situation is different, but as an actor, when you first start a project, how do you gauge whether the writer or director is actually going to be a collaborative partner? How do you feel them out in that way?
I don't know. It's different with each one. I mean, I cannot sing Lauren's praises enough first of all, just as a creative entity, but also as a true leader. Mm-hmm. I felt so safe and open to talk to her. And, I have not had any experiences with a franchise, and they're intimidating. I'd certainly, I kind of knew what I was walking into, and then you get there and the sets are so big and there's so many people, and our first day of shooting there was 500 paparazzi. It felt like it was like the Met Gala or something. I wouldn't know, but yeah. But I really was aware of the bigness of it, and it was very nerve-wracking because it's just a lot of it's just another added layer of pressure on top of just acting being often very embarrassing, and having to push through your own shame spiral and embarrassment about it. But she was so open and like lovely, and so was Craig, and so was Helen Shaver, the director who directed 4, who's just, I can't sing her praises enough either. So it's different each time, but I really did feel like protected on this in a way that was really incredible.
And since you're speaking to an audience of fellow actors, I guess I would ask the flip side of that. If you walk into an environment and it's pretty clear that they're not open to collaboration, what are some of the ways you cope with that as a performer?
You just pray and call your friends a lot. I don't know. You can just kind of like hope for the best. But that happens too. I mean, that's like, it's like, it's so different with each group of people, which is also kind of the magic of it too, is that it is like this once in sort of a moment in time type thing. But yeah, no, I lucked out on this one.
Now, I've read you've talked in interviews about how you've auditioned for superhero films before and you've gotten pretty far in the process, but it never really worked out. But you said in a recent interview, quote, "I am grateful that I didn't get those jobs because I wouldn't have necessarily got to play Sophia."
Yeah.
Tell us more about why you say that.
It's because I believe that to be true. Like, I've tested for a lot of them, very thankfully, and also like just kind of assumed I was like, oh, I guess I'm just really not. I just can't do it, or like I don't have the thing. I don't know what it is they're looking for, but I guess it's not meant to be. But thank God, because this was like my dream of dreams. Like I genuinely love this particular comic book world and franchise, and also it felt like I got to do things that I've like dreamed about, and if I'd been in something else, I think I would have carried whatever that character is into the room or something, and they would have been like, no, she did that or whatever.
Right. You're locked into a 10-picture,
Right.
deal of sequels
Yeah.
of who knows. Now, of course, we need to talk more about the episode that we just watched, Chantani. And so I believe when you signed on to the role, you had the first 4 scripts.
I had the first one.
Oh, okay.
And long discussions, and then once I signed on and everything was like closed, then they sent 2, 3, and 4.
So then,
Yeah.
before shooting,
shooting, thank God.
And so I was going to ask, how did knowing what happens in this episode sort of inform your decisions as you perform Sophia in 1 through 3?
It informed everything. It was such a blessing to be able to have that. Like, it was kind of a blessing to be able to like reverse them. Like, I would read it like 4, 1, 2, 3, which was so helpful. I mean, without that knowledge, like it would have been so different, and so much of like her physicality and even the way like that we collaborated on what she wears. Like, she's in that sort of like Chanel straitjacket when you first meet her, like everything is like so locked. And it was so incredibly helpful to sort of like calibrate, just how she moves and how her like body moves through a space, and even like the levels of her dialect, and it was everything. This episode was like, it was like a Bible. Yeah.
And from a production standpoint, it seems like this was an enormous undertaking, because it's 57 minutes long, multiple timelines. How long were you in production on this episode?
Like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Something crazy. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. Like, it's really
getting snaps.
Yeah, thank you. No, it was, like, that's the challenge of, and maybe this is just like a trend that's just the norm now, but like limited series or television series are like expected to look cinematic, but shoot on the schedule of a television show, which is like not, I don't know who is calling the shots with that, but that's like, I don't know if they've like been on a set while that's happening, because it's so crazy. Like all the Arkham stuff, all the fights and everything in that mess hall, the numerous times that were there, I think that was 2 days.
Wow.
And that's like really complicated, like literally just the fight choreography. And then I think the stuff, in all the hallways and in her room, in her like cell room, in her cell, and like when she's being like the intake and everything, that was probably 3 days.
And were you shooting chronologically?
No, we shot sort of all over because it was all block shooting, but I want to say we did. Oh God, I don't remember. This is like a year ago now, but I think that at least like the Arkham stuff would be like, okay, we're doing 1 day of Arkham.
Okay.
There were other times where we would jump between her time periods, where like for the first half of the day, I would be like, 25 with the long hair and the nails and everything. And then we would like switch to when she's out and then switch back. And that was like crazy.
I was going to ask,
nuts.
like, how? Like, how do you do that? Like when you're like, what is the process, or how do you sort of help yourself get into whatever mindset you need to be in that moment, especially when you're jumping back and forth in a single day?
Well, some of it is like, you're surrounded by people who are so at the top of their game and you feel like a race car or something. Like you also have no time to change out of, I have like scars and I have like all this stuff, and like that felt like I just would stand still and like 5 people would come at me and be like, hair extensions, blah, 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 nails off, like as they were lighting.
Yeah.
And, you've hopefully like done enough thinking about it or work on it that you're like, all right, I know what scene is next and like what I'm going to try an attempt to do. And then sometimes I think that maybe those situations are blessings because you can't think. And then other times I'm like, this is crazy. Like this sucks. So like this isn't fair that things are shot like this, because it's so stressful for everyone. Like everyone is like at a 12 because you just feel like there's no margin for error, and that's like also when exciting things happen are in the margin of error. For error, you get it. But so I don't know, that certainly was a challenge, but also to just speak to Helen Shaver, who directed that episode, like she truly was like, it was like, oh, Captain, my captain. Like she just like led us through.
Well, and
as hectic as it was.
That's a good point, that everyone is feeling that
stress.
Yeah,
everyone's feeling it. Everyone is running. And it's, but like you also, I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone, but something that I've felt on this show is that like the cast, we all really loved it, and the crew seemingly all really loved it too. Like we all did feel like we were like, we really believed in it. And so I don't believe that days should be that hectic. Like that's crazy, and I wish they would give us more time. But you do feel like it's like galvanizing, like you're all in it together.
Yeah. Well, and you make so many interesting choices, just as Sophia, throughout the series. But in this episode in particular, I want to talk about, first of all, you mentioned her movement. Like I love how in the beginning, when we see her giving the speech at the luncheon, she's awkward and she's kind of talking with her hands, and then you contrast that with at the very end when she's like elegantly swanning through the house filled with her dead relatives, and it's just like so graceful. Talk about that. And you worked with a movement coach, I understand. Like tell us a little bit more about that process of finding those movements, and did the earlier scripts, how those informed?
I mean, they certainly helped just because she's so. I worked with a brilliant movement coach, Julia Crockett, who I really, really adore working with. And then also some of it was just the experimentation, and like that you're just trying to, at the end of 4, even as dark as that ending is, like she's so free.
Yeah.
She's so like, and that's also like a collaboration with what she wears too. Like that's like the first time you've seen her in like loose anything outside of like the Arkham uniform. But yeah, I mean, it was just, I don't know how to answer it totally. Like some of it is just the things that you're like finding in the moment, and then some of it is just like things that you hope translate, and like that's very meaningful to hear, because like I certainly attempted to try and show the ways in which like she's changed forever, and can't ever return to how you meet her at the podium in the beginning. Like there's no world in which she could.
And did you, in your mind, sort of contrast the speech she gives in the beginning with the speech she gives at the dinner table?
Not until that didn't dawn on me. That's also like part of Lauren's genius. I forget when that dawned on me, but I was done shooting both. And then like at one point I was like, wait. Yeah. So sorry.
And definitely the way she looks really, evolves in this episode. So I'd love to hear more about your collaboration with her. Like the look at the dinner is incredible, and the hair is like on its way to the mullet, but it's not full mullet yet. Not full mullet. And then the dress when she wakes up the next morning. So tell us more about those discussions.
I felt very strongly about something we talked a lot about, and something that I felt strongly about was that like this is someone who would only really know how to would have been raised with like hair, makeup, and nails, and clothing as like a way of expression because of like in the sort of like patriarchal mafia family that she's in.
Right.
And so like, how does this person who's gone through what she's gone through, and those are the tools that she grew up with, and then also possibly like got stunted at a certain age just because that's like what happens when you're traumatized, and you know, all these the possibility of that. And like I felt like I wanted that eyeliner underneath to be like this, like war paint, and like something that would, how would this person still operate in this system when you know they're about to cross over in a way that is like still somehow like adheres to the rules of it, but is like really dangerous.
Yeah.
And the hair, we had like so many discussions about. We knew that, like, I felt that I wanted it to be like very feral, and I also like really pushed for it to like end up as the mullet, because I just was like, this person would never have. She would be like rebelling. She's like an animal. She's like a creature, and like, what is the look that is going to make her feel like how she feels on the inside, which is that she's like a beast or something.
Yeah.
And so all of those things kind of really. We tried to like lean into that. I mean, even like there's a coat in a later episode that I wear that's like this giant black coat, and like it's literally like a wolf or something, you know, like in just little tiny ways. But and we knew that dress was going to show all her scars, and we knew that we wanted it to float over the bodies. So that we like, there was also a shot that like got cut that was of her like walking through the yard, and it was going to be like a snake, so we knew like that was also Helen too. Both Helen Huang, our incredible wardrobe designer, and Helen Shaver, like we all were in cahoots about how sort of like otherworldly we wanted it to look at night.
I see. Okay.
As well as like Bugsby Berkeley. Like we had like 10,000 fittings for that dress so that we could find the right sort of like the look. Yeah.
Did it make its way home with you?
No. And even if it did, I was like, where would I? That would be
the Met Gala.
Crazy. No, but can you imagine being like this whole thing? Like where it's like so clearly from the thing.
True.
Yeah. No, that one, I took other stuff, but not that.
Okay, fair enough. Good. I'm glad you walked away with some good stuff.
Yeah. A couple of good
I also
shoes.
love that Sophia eats with her hands.
Yeah.
And like is funny about her eating. Did any of that come from your discussions? Was that in the script? Or
that was in the script. That was like all Lauren. And then we kind of like took it and ran with it. Like I think for the most part, wherever it is, it was written. And then a couple times, like I think when at the funeral, when I grab it out of the bowl, that was like something we tried that day. So we would like, we sort of expanded on what she'd already put in there. But that was also like, you know, kind of like a leftover from like how you would eat for 10 years if your food was taken away from you. And also she like loves pleasure. She's like been without pleasure for 10 years.
Yeah. And you mentioned a little bit about the physicality of this episode. I was going to ask, I mean, obviously, you know, a plethora of emotional challenges, but what was the biggest physical challenge of this episode? Because there's so much physicality to it.
Probably like the fighting in chains was like like, but it's also like it's like a thrilling challenge too, because you're like, it's so restrictive and it's so difficult, but that's also like what it would be like for her. And I was so excited to even be able to like be in a situation where I would get to do scenes like that. But like, I'm not gonna, that wasn't like comfortable physically.
And what was, you mentioned the choreography. Like, how much time do you even have to sort of learn the choreography
of a fight?
Yeah,
like 2 days.
Yeah,
you rehearse it for like you rehearse it the first time to figure out what the beats of it are, and then you're in like every day. So then you do it like again 2 weeks later, and then we had an incredible stunt coordinator who really was good at being like, slow down, like everyone slow down. We will run this as much as possible, but then your adrenaline gets going, and like, you know, it gets gnarly. And what's thrilling about those scenes was that again, Helen Shaver, our director, she really empowered like all the background artists she sat with us all at the top of each day, and for 20 minutes would be like, I want every single one of you to come up with like a story of who you are in here, and we're gonna like really roam, and I'm giving you free range, like this is a play. Like we're not, you know, like yes, there are specific shots or whatever, but like when they're all coming at me, they're coming at me like it felt like a play.
Yeah.
It was so cool, and everyone was so invested. And when they're like banging on the tables and screaming, like, I mean, I still have chills thinking about it, because you're just like, it's so exhilarating, and it really like helps the world of that, which is I give her so much credit. She's incredible.
Now, I also want to talk about your co-star. And first of all, I assume you must have rehearsed with Colin Farrell without the makeup.
Not really.
Really?
No.
So, because I was going to ask, how do you go from like doing lines and then it's a person you don't even recognize?
Yeah, I mean, I'd met him outside of his makeup like a couple times in pre-production, just in the way that like they're like, you like cross paths in the hallway during fittings, and like we did a big terrifying like table read for like 10,000 people. It felt like for like, then it just felt, oh God, it was so nerve-wracking. And I think all of us were afterward being like, are we gonna get fired? Like it just felt like an 8th audition or something. So I met him then, and we'd met during testing too, when I tested for it. And but then like for 8 months it was just him in that makeup. So I really associate him with Oz. I don't now, like now we've done enough press together where like it's back, and like obviously like I know who Colin Farrell is, like I do, and he's such an incredible actor, and like he's, you know, just been working at a level that is like so incredible for so long. But it was very odd because like I associate his eyes and voice with Oz.
Yeah.
And Oz feels like so real to me too, because it looks so real in person. And, you know, that's like who I felt like I spent time with. It's so strange. But now I'm like, it's fine. I'm back.
Yeah. Okay. You got it.
Yeah.
When in between takes, was he just like talking as Oz in his Irish accent? This is just me wondering.
No, he just was like talking as Colin. Like we'd be like, what'd you do this weekend? And it would be like, you know, Colin's voice. But like, and then he would like switch into it.
That's incredible.
I know, it was really cool. So that's why it's also like when we first started doing press was so weird, because it wasn't like Oz's voice. It was like it truly was nuts to experience the first couple times.
That is nuts.
Yeah.
Well, I know you don't normally read reviews or anything like that, but how are you about watching your performances?
I don't love it.
You don't love it?
No, I don't love it.
Well, I read that you finally watched The Sopranos in 2022.
I did.
She was in The Sopranos,
as a
Johnny Sack's daughter.
That's right.
And you didn't watch it until 2022. And I just want to know, what was that experience like watching your performance, you know, from so many years ago?
I mean, it was I'm so I'm so tiny in it. Like I'm so young, and like I'd never seen a camera, and I didn't know. Like I remember they told me at one point, they were like, "Oh, craft service is over there," and I was like, "Great." And then I like went to the props table and ate like prop shrimp. Like didn't know where anything was. I was so scared. I was so intimidated. And like in the scene too, like I have like there's like a scene where I have like one line, and it almost reminded me of like a Moira Rose reading where I was like, why doesn't everything in my mouth? Like I just was like, oh God, like you can't even like do the no. But I also was like so it was so moving too, because I just remember being like so enamored with everything, and also so frightened. And also I hadn't seen that show, thank God. Because like I wouldn't have been able to like get a word out if I'd known what that show was.
Yeah.
And like ignorance was truly bliss. And so when I also came up, I also kind of like forgot I was on it. Like not in a real way, but you know what I mean? Like I was so enthralled with like that show, which is the best show ever made. Turns out everyone is right. That's like why it took me so long to watch too, because I was like, I'll get to it. Like I get it. It's great. It's great. But I was also just so like moved, because I was like, oh my God, wow, like this, you were so scared, and you still get scared, but not maybe at the same like level of, although sometimes I still do. I don't know. It was just like, it was very like meaningful.
Well, for my last question, because they're giving me the high sign, I saw in an interview you talked about how you still to this day spend the first few weeks of any project, I want to read the quote properly, think you go into a spiral of, quote, who could do it better, who they should have gotten instead of me, etc. But over the course of your career, you have learned to make peace with that. And so I feel like your fellow actors would love to know, how do you make peace with that and deal with, because it seems like something that I would imagine a lot of performers struggle with.
Well, and also because it's so vulnerable, and what we do is so vulnerable, and I feel like there's often maybe like not. That's why I love working with directors who've been actors, because they're so immediately understanding of like, hey, this is like this needs to be like a, for lack of a better term, like sacred space of like quiet or whatever, or like doing what you want to, what you like need to do. And people who don't haven't experienced that are sort of like, let's go, whatever. And that's like the challenge of making something. But I am very lucky that like a lot of my closest friends are actors. And so I have this like incredible network of people that I can like call while spiraling in a trailer, or like spiraling on the ride home or something, that I can be like, hey, this ever happened to you? Like, and it's this beautiful community, and we all met in audition rooms. And like, it's one of the things that I really like. The whole self-taping thing is like such a bummer, because like obviously you learn so much in an audition room, but also like that is where I met all my like close girlfriends. We were like all up for things together, and like we kept seeing each other like all the time, and they are still to this day who I call when I'm, and vice versa too. Like we really, and I think without that, I don't know what I would do. Honestly, I mean, like therapy helps too. But having a good community.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, and congratulations on the role.
Thank you. Thanks.